We had Michael Cohen testify over the last couple of days here this week, and it was rather extraordinary in the sense that prosecutors did a very good job previously with all of the other witnesses and all of the other evidence entered into the trial of painting out this picture and laying the groundwork and framing all of this testimony from Michael Cohen for the jury so that while he is still a key witness, he's now not necessarily the linchpin. He's just there to connect the dots of everything that happened prior and to fill in a few holes here and there that absolutely nailed Trump. And then also, like, there's this idea that if you could discredit Cohen as the defense counsel, you could get Trump off. But that's extraordinarily, it's near impossible to do because basically you would have to disbelieve all of that testimony from the other witnesses in order to look at Cohen's testimony and say, this isn't the case, and not find Trump guilty beyond a reasonable doubt on these counts of falsifying these documents. But
not only that, but like when the bookkeeper, when she testified, it was very obvious that she still was enamored with Trump. Like she was in his corner. So as I had said on previous times that it's easy to try to paint Stormy and Michael Cohen as, oh, they're just out to get Trump. They have an axe to grind, etc. And I can see how people would be on the fence with that. But the other witnesses, there was none of that. Like there wasn't, like Hope Hicks, there wasn't that with her. There wasn't. No. So their testimony, and I think they did a great job. Yes, we call it the hush money trial, but Stormy Daniels is just a cog in the wheel of the grand scheme of what Trump was trying to cover up and the fraud.
Yeah, she just happened to be this one particular specific instance of these falsification of documents. But what they showed previously was that Trump was engaged in a pattern of behavior of trying to cover up these negative stories before the election, which David Pecker did a fantastic job of explaining how that worked. But we'll get to some of the specifics of Michael Cohen's testimony. And I mean, if you want to sum it up, you can cut the podcast off right after this because this was the nail in the coffin here. It was, Michael Cohen told Trump about Stormy Daniels shopping her story in the middle of 2016, and Trump instructed him to take care of it. It's pretty open and shut after that. All of the specific details are just in line with that bit of a story. But first of all, what was really insane is, so Monday and Tuesday, of course, as Michael Cohen said to testify specifically about Trump, and given that Cohen's already been to jail for these crimes when he was charged by the Department of Justice, you would think that Trump would be alert and focused, but no, even in this instance, he couldn't help himself. Motherfucker still falling asleep every day. Like, what is going on? Like, how do you not stay awake for the dude that you know went to jail already that's about to send you to jail? It's crazy.
Especially since he said it was freezing in there. Like,
I'm standing by my belief that his attorneys are slipping him some Benadryl or some melatonin or something, so that
they try to keep him from being wild
after court, whatever. But they're like, please don't aggravate the judge. I'm not trying to be disbarred. Just.
And that's hilarious. So they got him drugged, so he's not acting crazy out here. I think it might be the opposite. Actually, I think he might take some performance enhancing drugs on the side. And they're like, you got to chill out with that when we go to court. But yeah, and
then he's crashing because he was up all night,
right?
Deja vu
on Adderall.
Yeah. So
Deja vu. I'm pretty sure we said this exact same conversation.
We might have. I don't know. But
let's listen.
He's still falling asleep though. And that's what's crazy. He's been falling asleep in court every day of the fucking trial since the beginning of it. Like we kind of laughed it off at first. It's like, oh, it's funny he fell asleep. Well, now he's doing it every day and it's kind of normal. And like, how do we let that become normal? Because this is insane. And then like, I can only imagine what it must be like being a juror sitting in this trial and you're like focused on every detail of every individual's testimony. And then you look over and you see Trump there and he's like, what the fuck? Um, so Michael Cohen, first off, started his testimony on Monday talking about how he actually didn't want to be a lawyer when he was growing up. He wanted to work on Wall Street, but his grandmother said that ain't gonna happen, like quote unquote. Um, and it's just interesting because he said his grandmother was a Holocaust survivor who immigrated to Canada and later on to the United States. And I think that was one of the things that kind of colored Michael Cohen's mea culpa, so to speak. Here, it's to some point, I guess after speaking with his family in the midst of all of this, he came around to the side of being pro democracy because he saw what a danger the Trump is to the United States and to our democracy, and some of the experiences that his grandmother probably had growing up might have colored that. And I know a lot of people are going to say, fuck Michael Cohen, he's a jackass, all the shit he did, and that's totally fine. I personally, I've got some issues with a lot of the stuff that Michael Cohen did, but I can say of all of the people that we know in the political landscape that were, former Republicans or former Trumpers or, especially from Trump's inner circle, nobody's flipped as hard on Trump as Michael Cohen has. And since he's flipped, he never went back. And not only that, he's been going out of his way every single day to make sure he holds Trump accountable for the things that Trump, well, first of all, the things that he did in Trump's employ, but also the things that Trump has done. And he holds himself accountable. And he'll tell you he's made a lot of mistakes and that he's not the greatest person in the world. But he also paid his dues, did his time, and he's trying to make amends. And like that's commendable. Like this shit with like, Mike Johnson blocking the aid to Ukraine for months, and then he finally lets the vote go to the floor and then gets praise from the media. That's fucking insane. Dude is a clown show. Like none of those people like that should be getting any kind of praise from the media whatsoever. And not saying, Michael Cohen should be should have praise heaped upon him, but just again, like if anyone should be getting praise, it should be this dude. Because
well, the thing is that Michael Cohen is a private citizen. Michael Johnson owes us. He
right,
owes us. We are the people that he's supposed to be working for.
Yeah.
So
he can't beat the lowest
bare
possible
minimum of, because we pay your salary. No, that should. But Michael Cohen, he's, what does he really have to gain? You know what I mean? Like there's no real skin in the game for him except him trying to do his best to right whatever wrongs he did in whatever way he can.
Well,
but
you know
Michael
what?
Johnson,
it's funny you say that because the defense counsel for Trump on cross-examination actually tried to bring up some of these points. Like, what does Michael Cohen have to gain from this? And they were talking about, your podcast, it's got a bunch of downloads. It's like, yeah, you make money off your podcast, right? Yeah. And then they did kind of mess up and make a mistake here where they were talking about the Midas Touch merch store, and they put some of the exhibits from that up, and they were like, hey, is this like the stuff you sell for your podcast? But that wasn't actually Michael Cohen's merch store. That was the Midas. So they got that totally confused. Like, way to miss out on that detail, guys. And it actually kind of made some of the cross-examination look ridiculous that they can't even figure out small details like whose merch store and stuff belong to. But also, shout out to the Midas Touch guys. But no, Cohen's tried to at least make his amends. Like people like Mike Johnson doing the bare minimum just every rare occasion. It's not even the bare minimum every day. It's like every few months. That they shouldn't get credit for that. But Michael Cohen also talked about how he first began working at the Trump organization because he was familiar with Don Jr. and Jr. Said that there was an issue at Trump World Tower with the board. And
I don't know if you remember at some point the name Trump carried prestige.
What year is this?
I bet that is true.
1986.
96, it might have, I mean, people, it wasn't like,
Nah, we was laughing at
it
dude.
wasn't unanimous contempt.
That
I don't know.
is true.
I
That is
fair.
very,
I
very,
maybe.
very
I
true.
feel like
I mean,
we were
people
laughing
going
at dude by
Oprah.
the. Huh? Oh
Oprah.
yeah. Nah, I feel like we were laughing at dude by the late '90s, and he had been bankrupt a few times, and then he was never really popular like that in New York. Everybody thought he was a sleaze bag, apparently, or New York City, at least from what I hear from locals. And by the 2000s, it was a total dumpster fire. All he really had going for him was the show. Um, and look, we all know reality TV show is not real, but I guess that's not the case for most Americans.
I
They're
guess
totally
it would have
unaware.
had to have been like 2005.
Yeah, but Don Jr. got him a job with the Trump organization, and you know, Cohen was talking about on the stand how Trump said he liked how he handled this issue with the board. So he asked him to come help on a few other matters and ended up having him come work for Trump full time. And I don't know, once he started working there full time, Cohen said he actually loved working there. And this goes to some of Cohen's credibility here, where he's not totally just trashing his experience with Trump or the Trump organization, where he was like, actually, it was my dream job. I loved it. I was working at a firm when Trump gave me the nod to come work for him full time. I didn't even go back to my office to collect my shit. Like that's how dedicated he was to this whole Trump org thing. So for Trump to fall out of favor with Michael Cohen, clearly it had to be an extreme situation for Michael Cohen to have made such a
Well, it's funny you should say that, because part of the original offer was for payment of money. And as you know, it eventually tapered off and was funneled into a conspiracy for campaign fraud.
Well, Cohen talked about this too. He was like, "Yeah, I was making a pretty good salary at the Trump organization, but Cohen had previously made fairly good money, and he'd been in a situation with these taxi medallions, the New York City taxi medallions, where an associate of his had owned quite a few of them, but was leaving the country, and he was like, "Here, man, I'll cut you in on this, half price." So those taxi medallions had made Cohen quite a bit of money, and he'd also invested in some real estate here and there. And once he began working at the Trump organization, he'd invested in a few properties. So it's not like Cohen was hurting for money at that point anyway. But we'll get to more on that in a bit. And Cohen was clear that he even referred to himself as Trump's fixer. So that kind of lets you know the kind of work Cohen was doing for the Trump organization.
Oh yeah.
And he said he was never part of the general counsel office at Trump organization, but he was asked by Trump to take care of, numerous matters regularly. Any issues came up, Cohen was one of the first people that Trump would call.
He's the consigliere.
Yeah, exactly.
Pretty much. And there was an instance where, law firms.
But I've joked several times about being that. So he probably knew it was true. He wasn't joking.
There was an incident where law firms and vendors to Trump University had issues about being paid, and he had, Cohen take care of like something close to 50 vendors that hadn't been paid. Cohen tried to lowball them, and there were a few with like a couple of $1 million left that, he basically cleaned up Trump's mess, where Trump is like refusing to pay people what they're worth, and Cohen lowballed him and took care of most of those. And Trump approved of Cohen's work, so I mean it was a mutually beneficial relationship at that point, and it won Cohen a lot of favor. And then Cohen talked about some of the ways that Trump kind of finessed his business or whatever, saying that Trump never had an email address because Trump had told Cohen that, quote, emails are like written papers, and he knows too many people who've gone down from using emails that prosecutors can use, which is, guilty fucking conscience, dog.
Roy Cohn taught him well, man. He taught Trump well, which is why he was always using burners, somebody else's phone.
Oh man,
never leaving
Yeah, no
Oh.
emails, no text messages. Yes, Trump is one of them dudes who was like, I ain't definitely never gonna have that wire situation where I'm taking notes on a criminal fucking conspiracy. Unfortunately, when you do so much dirt nonstop for decades, occasionally the people that work for you that engage in taking care of those criminal activities do leave some damning notes, and that is actually what happened in this particular case. There were a few couple of things
Or when you have so much evidence against you that it fills your ballrooms. Sorry.
that's a
No,
totally
that's it.
different criminal trial, Carol. But
I
so
know it is, but he has a reputation and a history for having so much criminal evidence against him that he can't even keep it hidden at all.
yeah,
That's true.
case
I
in
know it's a
point,
different trial.
when he had those documents hidden in the bathroom shower, but they were stacked so high that they were like above the shower curtain, like you could see that they were like
Above the
close
show,
to the.
above, like
That's fucking insane. But yeah,
That's
so
the guy who didn't want to leave a paper trail.
one particular instance of a damning paper trail in this case were these handwritten notes by Alan Weisselberg in terms of reimbursing Cohen these payments to Stormy Daniels, where he's like, there's like the number, there's the 130K or whatever, but Weisselberg has to gross it up by double to account for the fact that in order to make Cohen whole, you'd have to account for him paying taxes. And this is one of the things that kind of, I mean, it's again one of those things that it's the nail in the coffin that proves that these weren't legal fees; they were recorded in the financial documents, and also it appears to be some kind of form of tax evasion, where I'm assuming that the Trump organization used these payments to write off their taxes. So, if the election interference doesn't do it for you, there's also the tax fraud.